Sit back, relax, and strap it down. White Sox baseball coming your way.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to the Good Home presentation of Major League Baseball Sox Type Thing, presented by Revolution Brewing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to Sox Type Thing, presented by Revolution Brewing. Episode 12. I think this has to be the AJ Pierzynski episode.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
He was Major League A-Hole's part of our avatar for all of our branding on social media for the better part of a decade. He, along with Michael Barrett, in the most famous Cubs Sox incident ever. I mean, we could give it to Romy Gonzalez, but I don't know if he's earned that quite yet.
Not earned it yet, but he's
on his way.
Pretty good so far. I'm impressed. Or maybe surprised is a better word. But
or as I mistakenly called him, Rollo Tomasi.
Rollo Tomasi, yes.
Not quite close enough. Yeah, we have another incredible show. We were just joking before we got on the air that we keep thinking we're going to be wrapping up Sox Type Thing because there's only going to be so many things to talk about, and yet your White Sox keep giving us more and more things to talk about. It's incredible, the gift that keeps on giving, that are your Chicago White Sox. We have more CairoMania. He went 5-2 on the West Coast this week. We'll break down those series against Seattle and Oakland. We've got that punctuated by some Russa Palooza news and ridiculousness that we will enjoy breaking down. We've got the emergence of Elvis, the Elvis Effect. We got. I don't think we've talked enough about him, what an impact he's had. I think we briefly touched on it last week, but beyond that, what do we have?
We got Arethahan, of course, because what's a week without injuries?
Yeah, of course. We've got 21 games left in the White Sox season. We're going to break that down, what the Sox need to do to win this division. There's a lot of... I'm going to break down by math. I'm not sure how you're going to do it. I think we're going to have an interesting conversation about that, the situation at hand. You had an interesting back and forth on Twitter for a tweet bag segment. I think we're going to talk about it near the end, and finishing all of it with This Week in Sox Misery. We'll see if we need to add anything from next week in Sox Misery in the long history of misery on the south side of Chicago. But I think we might as well jump into it and go ahead and jump into the news.
CairoMania! Are you listening?
The CairoMania!
The Sox continue, for the most part, to thrive under Miguel Cairo, who's got them playing baseball at a nearly 700 winning percentage clip.
9-4 under his regime.
Yeah, that calculates to a 692 winning percentage. Over that time frame, they have basically led the MLB in every offensive category statistically.
I know you lead them in runs in September, which is impressive.
It's flipping nuts.
Watch your mouth.
And I know. I'm trying to clean up the app for all those kids that listen out there.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry, kids.
The positive effect that he has had on this team can't go without notice, and for some it has, and for others, and for most, I think it hasn't. I mean, Scott Merkin had commented, this was in his mailbag last week, his newsletter last week, on how one of the most noticeable differences in Miguel Cairo managing the team is you can see him walking through the locker room, talking to the players, constantly communicating with them, something he had not seen at all during the Tony La Russa tenure.
Wow.
Of course, it ended. The next comment was, I send Tony all my best for a healthy recovery.
Yeah.
Not wanting to, seem like he was like, get the fuck out, but
I mean, it's an honest journalist telling him what's going on. He doesn't want the guy dead, but it's a reasonable stance to take, I think. Yeah,
I think it's okay even if someone leaves a team under whatever circumstance.
We'll get to that.
If a comment wants to be made about something he's witnessed, since he's in the locker room every day, he's a beat reporter for MLB. I mean,
I think
for
you're
the White
seeing,
Sox,
I don't think it's just him. I think you're seeing that all over the place. Everyone has to punctuate everything they're saying about TLR with, well, of course we wish him well. We want to make sure he's okay. But I think people are going overboard with that. I think that's an interesting observation you got there.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is. The team has just been better without him. Whether that,
It's quantifiable. I mean, we were talking about how it felt palpable, and it felt that way as soon as he took over. But the numbers don't lie. I mean, we're, of course, small sample size, the baseball caveat of every baseball podcast there is, but small sample size. But Jesus Christ, I mean, that's 13 games we're talking about now, which is
at their most pivotal moment.
Yeah, approaching 10% of the season. I mean, it's significant. So.
But as much CairoMania as there was, that had to come to a bit of a bump in the road as La Russa Palooza returned on Sunday at the park in Oakland for ex-player, pretty damn good pitcher, Dave Stewart, was having his number retired. And word on the street from day one was that Tony was going to do his damnedest to be there for that event. And in fact, he was quite excited that, and it may have been designed that way, that when the Sox were in town, they were going to do that retiring since Tony had managed them.
Yeah.
So that led to, what does this mean for Tony and the future of the White Sox? And
Tony in the building for the first time since his leave of absence began. He, willfully took questions from reporters, so he's certainly making his presence known. He could have shown up in a disguise or whatever else, but he didn't have to make comments. He could have just said, "I'm just doing this for this, or I'm still recovering. We'll figure this out later." But he didn't shy away from any questions. It didn't seem like.
No, he talked about how he was cleared to travel, but not manage the team, which that kind of came out. Finally, the Sox released another statement a few days before that, outlining that on Friday, I believe it was.
Okay.
The ironic thing of it all was the Sox looked terrible in that game, the game that he visits with the team.
I'm not sure if that's irony. Maybe we'll get into that later, but I'm not sure if it's irony or coincidence, but it's fun to certainly.
It's comical nonetheless.
Yes, absolutely.
He visits with the team, visits with reporters, hangs out with Dave, and then the team gets pounded by a team that they have been manhandling for 3 straight days.
Yep.
But as you said, Tony willfully talked to reporters. So what did that lead to? That led to some pretty good quotes. I think my favorite one, and I don't know if you were aware of this, but thank God he's here to tell us this. Health is nothing to mess with.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that insight. But my favorite one, and I don't know if you heard this one or not, but he said, if we lose, meaning that game today, I won't get on the team plane.
I did hear this.
You think I'm kidding? I'll get a car, and then I'm going to drive back slowly, which is probably the only way he drives at his age. But
so he's what, in some place in like Middle America right now, or the Great Plains? This was yesterday.
Well, maybe he's taking the Route 66 trip back home. The more scenic route. It'll take him a little bit longer. Surrounding those comments too was the fact that he wasn't really sure if he was really going to be around at all, because he didn't want to be a distraction to the team. And
that's the quote I heard, and I've got lots to say about that.
And I think this is kind of what you and I talked about last week, but I kind of feel like the Sox found their opportunity to end this relationship in a way that wasn't necessarily negative,
or let this relationship evolve, as I think Bob Nightingale talked about. He's got a position in the front office waiting for him whenever he relinquishes his managerial duties. So that could have been a simple transition. And it probably will be likely, whether it's this whether it's sooner than later, that's what's going to happen eventually. But yeah, he mentioned he doesn't want to be a distraction. And by him saying that into a microphone and with a locker room full of reporters or wherever the fuck he was at, proves that he loves being a distraction. He's doing everything he can to be a distraction. He doesn't need to be talking to anybody at this point. If he doesn't want to be a distraction, he should say, I am not coming back in 2022. That would be the easiest way for anybody to not be a distraction, is just to go away. And I find that comment completely disingenuous. He wants to be the center of everything. He has wanted that from day one. You've seen that from day one as a White Sox manager. It's all about Tony. It's not about anybody else. And this is just the latest example of that. It would be the simplest thing. He could recognize they are on a roll. He is, even if they weren't on a roll, it is obvious that his presence is going to be a distraction of some sort. The question is going to remain, as he keeps dragging this on, is when is Tony coming back? What is going to happen with Tony? How could this not be a distraction every single day that he's keeping the ball club in limbo? It's an unfortunate circumstance that this is a medical issue, but it's a circumstance that everybody could have seen coming. I mean, he is a 77-year-old man. Apparently, and this is I'm not sure the reporting you've seen on this, but I've seen different stuff about having a pacemaker installed this spring. I've heard two reports that he had it like a pacemaker this spring. It was he had like I don't know if you remember that in spring training there was an issue where he had to go in for some kind of checkup or something, but that may have been where he got a pacemaker. Other reporting I've seen has said he had to get a pacemaker for this incident. That's why he's been gone.
That's what I've seen.
Well, I mean, I've seen it in a couple different places that he's referencing an adjustment to the pacemaker that he already had installed. So, the fact that we don't even know that simple fact is ridiculous. That it is so nebulous that you can't just tell us what the fuck's going on. It's unreal. I think there's some plausibility to the pacemaker's he's had this for a while at least. Yeah. In that the way we heard reported this latest incident is the doctors, noticed some issues that he needed to get checked on. I can tell you just from personal experience, my mom has a pacemaker. She's had one for like 20 years that reports to, like, it has an internet feed essentially, and it reports to her doctors what her heart is doing. It's not necessarily through the internet, but there's ways they can read the history of her heart over years. And I can't believe that Tony wouldn't have the technology that is that high where doctors can monitor what's going on with his heart and monitor every minor or major episode that he's had over time. And I think they noticed something on his EKG or whatever they were actually looking at and said, you need to make some changes here, and got him in for a tune-up essentially and told him to sit down for a while. So, but again, I just go back to this is perfect LaRussa Palooza that we're speculating about a man's pacemaker, and we can't even find out if this is new or if he's had this. So these are just simple questions that we should be able to figure out.
Is that even a question?
Yeah. And it all leads to the idea that he is inherently a distraction. And for him not to understand this is just, I think I'm going to say he's not ignorant. I think he's fully aware of what a distraction is, and he doesn't give a fuck because the whole world revolves around Tony.
Yeah, and he's a Hall of Famer type person. He thinks he's above the law.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why he ended up in the situation he's ended up in.
Yeah.
He doesn't think the rules apply to him, and he's an egomaniac. I mean, to actually come out of it, to me, to come out of retirement with the idea that, I know in his head that it was a slam dunk that he was going to win a World Series with the White Sox, is probably about as egotistical as you could get, being away from a dugout for as long as he had been away from a dugout.
I think highly competitive and highly successful people have to have that ego at times. So, I mean, we're holding him to the fire for that. But so I guess I can't criticize. I mean, I can, and we can for being egotistical. But I hate the fact that he's saying he doesn't want to be a distraction when it's obvious he does. I mean, just shut up and be a distraction if you're going to be a distraction. Don't tell me you don't want to be a distraction. That's where it gets ridiculous to me. So. Whatever. I mean, of course it's entertaining. This was comments on Sunday, recording this on a Monday night. We don't know his whereabouts now. We don't know if
he may have crashed. I mean,
is he drinking and driving? That is something that's in his history.
Why he wanted to take a long, slow drive.
Yeah. Who knows? So I guess hopefully he takes a long, slow drive and he can't be in front of cameras or anywhere near Sox Park for several days, and let your White Sox do what they need to do without him being a fucking distraction.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of relief because the first reports that came out were that he could return this week.
Yeah, it does not sound like that.
No, that's not happening
now
based on the other comments. But to your point, I agree with everything he said, Smitty. Like, just say, hey, it's not in the cards, not in my health to return this season. If he wants to leave it open for him maybe coming back in 2023 so people can talk about him more, fine.
Yeah.
But like you said,
2023 is a totally separate issue. Yeah, these 3 weeks are something very different, and he could solve that immediately.
Yeah. And just let everybody move forward with the situation. I mean, I'm not sure how it's affecting the team at all with like maybe the shadow of him returning, but I mean, if his presence is truly the reason for
it's not that.
I know
it's not. It's just the idea that the players have to answer questions every day about what do you think about Tony coming back, or do you know anything about Tony coming back, or when do you think Tony's coming back? It's just like, what do you think about Miguel Cairo? These are questions that a team trying to win a division with a serious gauntlet in front of them that we're going to be breaking down soon it's not fair to the players. And I'm wondering when, and this speaks to the fucked up power structure at the White Sox right now, and why Rick Hahn can't just step in and say, you know what, Tony, just step away. We don't need this for the next 3 weeks, playoffs, whatever. After that, maybe we could talk about later, but we need to not have this be a distraction. And the reason we're not seeing that is because he didn't hire the guy in the first place, because the owner did. And I mean, that is the genesis of why this is still a distraction, I think. I mean, there's no one in charge other than Jerry, and he's not going to step in and tell his best buddy to not manage or not do whatever the hell he wants. So this is the mess. This is the nightmare scenario that everyone pointed to when you hired a geriatric manager that's best friends with the owner. These are the complicated situations that come up, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that's happening. I guess the timing couldn't be any worse. This could have happened in May and it would be a very different story. But the fact that it's going on in mid-September now with the division on the line it's unreal. It's fantastic fodder for baseball podcasts, this podcast in particular. I will never get tired of talking about it, but it's unreal.
Yeah, there's nothing more to add to that. So let's move on.
All right.
Let's move on to some let's mix in something positive before we get back to the negative. And that's going to be,
we can jump back and forth between positives and negatives. That'll work.
Let's get in and talk about the Elvis effect on the Chicago White Sox. And
I had to add him to my fantasy team, by the way. I don't know if you saw that. I couldn't believe he was still out there this week.
I did not, but I mean, the positive effect, the veteran leadership that he has brought to a team that frankly has some veterans on it but in the infield in particular don't necessarily act that way. And that's even on Jose Abreu. And there's a couple moments I wanted to highlight. One was in the Kopech outing the other day, his first his return to the mound after being sidelined for a couple weeks, and he was struggling to find the feel of his pitches, and he was having a bad inning. In fact, I think he had thrown 6 straight balls, and everyone else is just standing around, and Andrus goes in there, calls time because he says, "Oh, I gotta get touch the my hands sweat. I gotta touch the rosin bag." I think he goes. He never gets close. Like he never talks to Kopech. But the reason this is a heads up play is Kopech needed a break to like refocus. You don't want to use a mound visit that early because this is like only like the second inning. You only get the 5 mound visits.
That's right.
He grabbed the rosin bag, let him catch his breath, and he goes ahead and rebounds in to that batter and gets him out after starting out 2-0 on him. And it's just like a heads up baseball play from a veteran. Now, I don't understand why. I can't say maybe Tim Anderson would have done the same thing. He's not out there right now, but it's not the type of thing you've seen historically from the White Sox, like a player just stepping up and making a move like that. They just basically do what they do until someone comes out the dugout when like a pitcher's having an issue or whatever.
That's interesting.
The other thing, which was awesome, this is in the same game actually. The Sox look like they're going to lose to Seattle. They're down 4-0.
Oh,
Eloy hits
maybe the biggest win of the year at this point, I think.
Yeah, and then Eloy hits the 2-run homer, and they kind of get back in it, but they get a leadoff single, I think it was, and Andrus is up from Rami. They get a leadoff single from Rami. Andrus is up, and he sees Suarez like playing all the way back, and he just puts down the bunt right past the pitcher. Then you got runners on first and second and no outs, and if you need the base runners to get those runs back. You don't,
right.
Not every home runs are great, and they make the world better. Trust me, I know we're 9-4 when we've hit a lot of home runs. We're playing at a 692 pace, so like that's great. Home runs make everything better, but there's also plays like that can be done. And his awareness of the situations. Several times now, he's made a play to third base on a play that was in front of him and got the lead runner out on a tag, not a force out, but there was runner at second base, no outs. He gets the runner out at first, doesn't just take the ball and throw it to first. The play's in front of him. He sees it, makes a quick and accurate throw. That's the other thing. His accuracy is lights out. Me personally, and we kind of talked about it last week. Timmy coming back.
Oh boy.
I don't see any way how you can't have Andrus move to second base and be on that field full time.
Yeah.
Because now that infield, and I love Josh Harrison, like he's a nice little spark plug and whatever, and he's the team seems to like him too, so he's part of that gel. Yep. Of what is good for the team, but you have to find a way to have Elvis Andrus on that field and in the infield every day.
Harrison can come off the bench. He's a great utility guy. He's not an everyday second baseman at this point in his career. Exactly,
and I think that infield of Moncada, Timmy, Andrus, and Abreu looks pretty damn good.
Yeah.
For the last couple of weeks of the season, if Timmy does indeed return then. So I just wanted to, like you said, you picked him up on your fantasy team. I mean, obviously Frank Menechino has a positive effect on his power. and go figure, it's all positive for Elvis when the manager's not there telling them to make contact on any pitch, because you just got to put the ball in play.
Well, it's amazing what happens when you start hitting the ball out of the ballpark, how everything turns into seashells and balloons.
Yes, it's a beautiful state of somewhat of nirvana right now, but there's always the bad side, and that's the wrath of Han. And the everything that's sort of funky and bad that surrounds the White Sox, kind of a lot of most all of it that we talk about here is not. It's really all during Rick's tenure of misses and having teams on the field that should be performing at levels they shouldn't, and having bizarre things just occur, including, like you just said, he can shut down, or he should step in and shut down this Tony bullshit. And
he's not empowered to do so.
And he's not. I mean, is he in hiding? Is he even holding the weekly press conference? I cannot find one. Like I've searched like for Rick Hahn press conferences.
Jerry's got him locked in a dungeon someplace. Like, no, this is my team.
But yeah, so speaking of TA, he has been doing conditioning drills, but he is meeting with a hand specialist on Tuesday to review next steps. So that makes me a little that it could just be part of the process. It wasn't really clearly explained. I'm assuming it is. But like, we're going to be at Tuesday. We're at tomorrow's the 13th, right? So there's 21 games left. I mean, unless he gets cleared to like go do a rehab assignment or something, I don't know that we are going to see him in the full final 2 weeks of the season. Because we're gonna be down to 14 games, around 14 games the following Tuesday. So it's going to be, it's very questionable if he gets cleared. I'm speculating here. I mean, if he gets cleared on Tuesday and can go down to Charlotte and do a rehab assignment for a week and get his legs under him and his timing back and all that, great. But if he's not, I don't know when you get him back. Maybe the last week of the season?
No. I think you'll take him whenever you can, but we're definitely running out of time.
Another guy who can't seem to stay on the field, Lewis Robert, and he got back from his having his baby. He went home to Miami, had to see his child's birth. Got back in the day after he returned and got hit in the finger by a fastball.
Unreal.
Tried to stay in the game, couldn't, and now has been out since then. So word on the street, according to Miggy's boys don't quit, as I like to say now, for the White Sox, that he will be back tomorrow, but we'll see. Again, the White Sox aren't doing horrible without him, but he's such a value add to the team if he's truly at 100%.
But
if he's not
going to be 100% though, I mean,
well, that's the thing. I mean, the way he's been looking in the games he has played, it doesn't even look like he's barely at 70%.
Yeah,
so
it might be worth it to set him out for while you're hot like this. Set him out for a week and get right, hopefully, and then be good for the stretch run. But who knows? I mean, that's part of Wrath of Han. Nobody really understands what's going on with all these injuries, all these bizarre circumstances. The timelines are nebulous. I mean, it just seems like there's always questions, and it always comes back to who's hurt, who's 100%, who's not 100%. What has the training staff told them to do? What has the management staff told them to do? It's all part of the funk that is Wrath of Han.
Yeah, and speaking of that stretch run, I think it's time to transition into how do the Sox mathematically win this division in the last 21? And this is something Smitty brought up to me, and I thought it was a fabulous idea. And it's not, you see, 2.5 games sounds mathematically easy, but it's really not that mathematically easy.
Yeah, you've got 21 games left, and this felt like we earlier this season you broke down a 19 game stretch, previewed that where the Sox were playing a bunch of teams below 500, and I think we speculated they needed to go 13-6 or something like that through that stretch. And so we're going to do something similar with these final 21 games. But like you mentioned, everyone looks at your 2.5 games back. And that's one frustrating thing about this week. You went 5-2 against some tough, West Coast, but Seattle is a playoff team, most likely. You went 5-2 this week, and you lost a half game in the standings, which is just testament to what the Guardians are doing right now. But the number that matters, the only number you should be looking at this point in the season, is the loss column. And you can forget games back or anything else. You can take a look at how many losses you have versus how many the Guardians have. And you're 4 games back in the loss column is what it comes down to. You've also played 3 more games than they have, which doesn't really help either. Gives them a little more leeway instead of the White Sox. So that's why these 21 games are going to be worth breaking down. I mean, you've got the schedule there in front of you, I think. Do you want to talk about the teams you're going to be playing?
Yeah. So first up are 2 games against the Rockies at home.
Got to win both. That is a far from playoff team. There's no excuse. You're at home. Beat the fuck out of the bottom feeders.
Yeah, you got Kopech and Cease going in.
Yeah, win-win. It's got to be.
Sounds like, I just hope Kopech, can stay in the game at least 5 innings, and knowing that Cease is going the next day, where you can probably get a solid 7 out of them, and you can set things up that way. Again, we're having an off day today, and we're gonna break down the importance of that, and the Sox having 3 more off days, or 2 more off days after this, compared to the Guardians only having 1 in a stretch. And again, we'll touch upon that. But I agree that I honestly, you got the 1 game against the Guardians.
Yeah, the makeup game that you were pissed off about that they had to do it at all. That's in Cleveland too, isn't it?
Yeah, we go to Cleveland and then we go to Detroit.
Okay. You've got that was one thing I meant to bring up. You've got 4 games against Cleveland, including this one off game this week, and then you've got another series. Is the last Cleveland series in Cleveland or in Chicago?
No, in Chicago.
Okay. You've got the Tigers for a total of 6 games.
Correct.
You need to sweep the Tigers in those 6 games. I mean, the Tigers.
I said I have that down here.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing I was going to bring up as we started this is you're 4 games back in the loss column. You've got 4 games against the Guardians right there, but I don't think it's realistic to think you're going to sweep the Guardians by any means. I think you can win a series you can win. I think it'd be tough to go 3-1, but I think that's at least plausible. I think the split is probably more likely, but the issue is, I don't know if you've seen this, but for the first time, there is not going to be a game 163 as a tiebreaker anymore.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
I don't know when that must have been the new collective bargaining agreement. I'm not sure why they eliminated it. Maybe they had to eliminate it because the season was delayed for a week this year, and there's just no time to build that into the schedule.
They said it was because of the extra round of the playoffs.
That makes sense then. So they're essentially, the tiebreaker goes to head-to-head record, and if you don't sweep the Guardians in those 4 games, you're going to lose the season series. So basically, you need to be 5. Since you're 4 games back, you need to be 5 games better in the loss column over these 21 games than Cleveland.
That's why the math. That's why it's not as easy as it looks if you just say, "Oh, they're 2.5 back," and here's why.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you go ahead?
No, go ahead.
One is the Guardians outside of the Rays series and the White Sox, which is where the Sox really have to try to clean up and dig deep and, try to go at least. I agree with you. I think a split is probably realistic, but if they can win the makeup game on Thursday,
that is one of the biggest games of the year.
I think they can go 3-1 against them and take 2 at home. And then it's a little bit different, but I did the mathematics that if the Sox continue to play at this pace that Cairo has had them on, they would they would go 15-6 over those 21 games.
That means the Guardians, you need to be 5 wins better than that. So the Guardians could still lose 11 of their last 24. Well, they couldn't lose. They could lose.
They could go they could go 14-10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know
and be okay. So
yeah, and be okay. Right. That's where it becomes unrealistic because the last 6 games in a row are against the Royals.
For Cleveland?
Yeah, for Cleveland.
Yeah, they've got a fairly easy schedule.
The Sox have to go to San Diego.
Yeah. Ooh. You've got the Twins in there as well, I think, don't you?
Yeah, we got the Twins who we seem to be manhandling, and everyone is right now.
I think
here's the problem with the Twins. They're going to make a decision. If Buxton is ready to go, do they want to bring him back just even if they do think they're out of it, do they want to bring him back just to be the spoiler for the White Sox or things like that? They could have a considerably, they're going to have all 17 guys back from the IL when they play the Sox in those final series of the year. But they are going to be getting healthier along the way. Mm-hmm. So the team is not going to be the same team that the Guardians just beat up on and the Sox have been beating up on. And I stand by my statement I made at the beginning of the year when the Twins were in the lead. I thought the pitching staff, the starting pitching was a bit overrated, and it's even more overrated when your best starter breaks his hand. But the other thing is, I said, without Byron Buxton, even with Correa on the team, this team has a different look, and it has. Mm-hmm. So if for some reason Buxton cannot make it back, I think the Sox can kind of beat up on the Twins again. But I think he is going to make it back. I think the biggest question is, and what may lend itself with the Sox having the 3 games in hand, is the Guardians have to play 24 games in 24 days. That includes an off day on a Monday, but it's 24 games in 24 days because there's a doubleheader in there against the Twins. And the thing about the doubleheader for the Guardians is they've only swept one doubleheader, and it was the Sox in that series in April. And the Sox got off to that horrible start. Mm-hmm. They have split every other doubleheader and have and then got swept by the Yankees in a doubleheader. But whatever, the Yankees are the Yankees, or were the Yankees then.
Yeah, so, who are the Yankees these days?
Who are the Yankees these days? And then they have to play the Rays. So those, to me, right there, you've got 3 or 4 losses. It's where do the other 6 or 7 come from? And I'll be honest, it is really hard to find on the schedule. They keep playing like they've been playing. Yeah. I mean, I can't. They are playing Texas in Texas, and Texas can hit. They can't pitch very well, but they can hit. But
Tigers beat up on them a little bit.
Yeah, right. So you don't know, and it's a road game, but the Guardians aren't terrible on the road. I think they're 4 or 5 games over. So again, the biggest, if the Sox could send a message and win all 4 of those games, then the outlook is well, you have to there's so much business that needs to be taken care of that it's hard. It's hard at even 15-6 to everyone will go, oh shit, they went 15-6 in their final 21 and still didn't make the playoffs. Well, it's because you dug yourself a fucking hole before that.
They only have themselves to blame for that. Yeah. That's the situation we're in. I just think Thursday's game is the season almost, the way you spelled it out. If they can win that, then they just have to win 2 out of 3 the next time they face them in Chicago. Is that a day game or is that a night? Is that a night game?
12. It's a 12:10, and it's going to be on. It's still going to be on Peacock because remember that was the game that got rained out on Peacock.
Make a Peacock game. Okay,
make a Peacock game, so no one will be tuning in for that.
I've got. Well, if you're a
I know I have Peacock too.
I was going to say, an Xfinity subscriber, you get Peacock for free. So
yeah, people make such a big deal out of nothing when it comes to that for the most part.
People hate change. That's what
they
we've
sure
learned.
do.
People love shitty beer and they hate change. Those are the
I
things I've
don't.
learned in my life.
I'm savoring my second to last Sun Crusher.
Oh, the season, the death of summer is upon us. Well, I guess the way to sum it up, this 21 game gauntlet is win on Thursday. We'll break down what happens this week in episode 13 next week, but win on Thursday. If let's say just for argument's sake, somehow the Guardians kind of come back to earth or are just mediocre, 500. They go 12-12. That means you need to go 14-7 in your 21 games, which is doable. I think it's doable, but it's not going to be easy, considering some of the competition you're facing. But that just means you have to sweep the Tigers. You have to sweep the Rockies, the teams that you should beat up on. You can't give away games there at all because everything is paramount. So. But that's what makes baseball fascinating. That's why you play for 6 months to see who's really the best team in each division. So I'm looking forward to it. It's easy for me because I don't really give a fuck. This is just pure entertainment for me, being a Tigers and Cubs fan. But it certainly gives us good fodder for our podcast. Anything that happens with your entertaining White Sox. So appreciate you guys staying in the race this long.
I do too. Thank you guys. But speaking of the upcoming week, I had another thing I got into on Twitter today. So there's 2 things in the tweet bag today as we move into the tweet bag.
All right.
I'm going to reach into the tweet bag and pull the first one out that is really relevant right now. And the WST, White Sox Twitter, for those of you who don't know it by that, they're losing their minds that Dylan Cease is pitching against the Rockies. They are not moving him back to pitch against the Cleveland Guardians on Thursday. Because we all know, and I'm with them on this, the Guardians, flooded that field on purpose with the rain.
Yes.
So they didn't have to face Dylan Cease, and we shouldn't let them get away with it. The problem is they're not looking at this, and I put it out there tonight, so it's a little spoiler for the show today. But everyone believes that because Cease is pitching on Wednesday, that means Giolito is pitching on Thursday. But we had today off.
Oh.
That does not mean that's what it is. You know what that means, folks? It means the slapdick motherfucker is taking the mound on Thursday.
Nice.
For the 5th day. And what does that do, everyone? Let me tell you what that does. That also then allows the White Sox to push Giolito back to game 2 against the Tigers because of the day off. Even though Cueto got sort of roughed up, he was leaving the. I mean,
that was TLR's fault, not Cueto's fault.
That's true. Thank you for bringing me back, Dr. Smitty. TLR hopefully will be nowhere near Detroit, and Cueto can pitch game 1 of the Tiger series. What does that mean for the White Sox? That means in the pivotal 3-game series against Cleveland, your pitchers are Cease, Lynn, and Cueto. That is what they're doing, everyone.
That is good management right there. That is good rotation management.
It says TBD for a reason on the Colorado game. They're just not letting you know yet that Lance Lynn is pitching that game. And it says TBD for every spot in the Tiger series because they're going to, Cueto's going to be pretty well rested. He only went 4 2/3 because he was leaving hanging breaking balls. So, work him through that issue, which was very rare for him this year.
Yeah.
Of course, one might think maybe his arm is getting a little tired. He
not can have one bad outing
but he's allowed to have a bad outing here and there
panic.
with the way he's pitched. Yeah, I'm not losing my mind over it. Again, we all know it's TLR's fault. So everyone just take a deep breath. Let's Cease. The last time, and need I remind you, the last time they moved Cease back an extra day, he got lit up. So he's one of those guys who needs to pitch on somewhat regular rest. I even think now he has an extra day because of the off day on Monday. So you don't want to push him to a 7th day. And trust me, with the way Lance Lynn has been pitching, I'd be very happy to see Lance Lynn on the mound in that Thursday game and line up the rotation, because Because if you don't do it that way and you don't push Giolito back a couple games, your rotation against the Indians would be because everyone says move Giolito up to the Colorado series and Cease back. Okay, well then your rotation for the Cleveland series is Giolito, Cease, Lynn.
Yeah, you don't need to do that.
No, you don't need to do it. So anyway, that's my word of advice to White Sox Twitter. Unless I'm the only one who's thought of this, I believe that's what the White Sox are going to do. Now we're going to talk about the use of the word ironic, and maybe perhaps I misused it. I don't know, but I had said it was ironic and comical that the day that TLR was in the park that the White Sox lost. And I thought it was ironic because I thought the Sox were going to do a 4-game sweep, and the exact opposite happened. They got their ass handed to them.
It's a loose use of irony. I mean, it's not as bad as Alanis Morissette levels of poor uses of irony or the word ironic, but I mean, I'm not going to rake you over the coals for it, but apparently others on White Sox Twitter have.
Well, I just think like a TLR fan base, a guy who's I can't think of his handle off the top of my head, like Johnny White Sox or something.
White
like
Sox
that.
Mike or White Sox?
No, not. No, we do not have a good relationship, Mike and I.
No,
yeah, whatever. He's
sad.
He's a meathead. But he said he kind of I thought he was baiting me to be like what's like I'm a La Russa camper, and he kind of was. I said, the reason I said ironic and comical is because I don't really believe it was because Tony showed up in the building, but we all thought they were going to have a 4-game sweep, and the exact opposite happened, and he happened to be there. And that's why I used the word comical too. And he's like, well,
you can tell. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think Tony was the issue, because I knew that's what it was.
You could tell. I saw the Twitter exchange. You could tell he was trying to bait you into something. He was being very very short with his words, like waiting for you to. He was setting a trap for you essentially. But
it's a trap. But but I knew what it was. And I just said I left it at because he said, well, I don't think Tony was the issue at all, and I don't think Cairo's the answer either. But I really like what you have to say or whatever. It was complimentary.
He liked your account.
Yeah,
he Sox type thing. Sox type. He should like the podcast. I'm not sure if he was aware you have a podcast.
I honestly don't think anyone that follows us on Twitter listens to the podcast.
I think you need to keep retweeting the links to the podcast daily.
All right. I have so much on my plate with this damn account.
This is a podcast, people. It happens to have a Twitter account, but
yeah, I know. The Twitter account's more popular than the podcast. That's not what we want here.
Dramatically more popular than the podcast.
Yes, but anyway, I admit I loosely used ironic. Maybe poetic would have been a better word. I don't know. But comical nonetheless. I think we can all agree it was comical.
Yes.
So that's it. Sorry for any confusion. I'm from the South Side. What do you want? Of course I'm going to misuse my words. Also, I think maybe before the season's up, I should reread Oh Slider Slide in a South Side accent. I think it brings it to a whole other level.
Yeah, you had like a faux British accent almost. Like
I don't even know. It was kind of just like it was a something. It was a red wine accent. But on that note, it is we'll be moving on. I can't talk now. We'll be moving on to our favorite final segment on here this week in White Sox Misery. And we're not even going to go back too far again this year. We're going to go to 2016. And
magical year in White Sox Misery.
Yes,
maybe the greatest year in White Sox Misery.
Right. And this is nothing to do with it has to do with Chris Sale, but not him cutting up jerseys, as we already visited that anniversary. Season. But even though the White Sox lost that day 2-0 to the Royals, Chris recorded his fourth consecutive year of 200 or more strikeouts. which was I believe it was a single season mark. And he has a single season mark in 2015 with the White Sox. That was a White Sox record. The sad thing about this, the reason I bring it up is, as great as Chris Sale was, and as great as Jose Quintana was during that time frame, and a lot of other people, we could never materialize a team to win a World Series or really even get to the playoffs. And that's why this is a key one for White Sox misery. It also is the catalyst for what was the rebuild. That we, were thinking we were going to be going to the playoffs for the third straight year after we had just accomplished it for 2 straight years for the first time ever. Another great moment in White Sox misery. An organization as old as the White Sox and in the third largest city to only have gone to the playoffs for 2 consecutive years for the first time in 2020 and 2021 is freaking pathetic. But the reason I picked this one is because Sale is really the catalyst of the rebuild, the trade to get Mancada here, and some other guys no one remembers. But and that's why I brought it up, just from the sheer fact that we did have a lot of talented teams. I've gone back and looked at some of those rosters and shake my head at the pitching staffs we had and just were not able to make the playoffs. I mean,
mired in mediocrity.
Yeah, and it wasn't. There were moves, there were dumbass moves, but there were moves where you literally looked at that team and you're like, oh yeah, they're gonna be right in it this year, and they just did not compete at all. And to have a guy for 4 consecutive seasons have over 200 strikeouts with your number 2 guy being Jose Quintana in his prime, I mean, from a 1-2 standpoint, it doesn't get too much better in baseball at that point in time, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, they really didn't do much on the back end of those rotations, but still, I mean, I can't remember who some of the third starters were, but they weren't terrible. I mean, John Danks was in there for part of that, but so I don't know. I thought that was worth bringing up because it is a miserable time in White Sox baseball, and the year that Smitty and I truly believe someone should make a documentary about, at least a 30 for 30 should definitely be on the 2016 White Sox. So,
well, I was paying attention, but I was paying far more attention to what was going on the north side that year. So there's probably things in that documentary that I'd love to learn about, actually. So,
why? What happened that year?
some good things in the north side.
What?
But that just adds to your misery and how miserable the 2016 season was. So I think that's a good way to sum it up.
It wasn't. You know what? It's not that bad.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing real quick. We're not going to know the outcome by the end of this podcast, but Trout went yard for the 7th straight time, and the Guardians and Angels are deadlocked at 4 in the bottom of the 6th in Cleveland.
Boy.
So tune in, folks.
So you've got 2 wins against Colorado this week. Hopefully a win in Cleveland on Thursday. And then this weekend is who? I forget already. Oh, that's the Tigers, isn't it?
Yeah. How could you forget the Tigers?
Well, I'll be watching NASCAR and football most likely this weekend, but I will be tuning in Thursday for sure. So I mean, I think you should go 6-1. No, 5-1 this week. So I don't know. We'll find out. We'll tune in. We'll be back probably Monday night. I'm assuming we're going to have to do episode 13 of Sox Type Thing Monday night, as so many crazy things that we could not have predicted happen in this coming week.
The White Sox are in first place by 3 games.
This is typical for your 2022 Chicago White Sox. So in the meantime, follow Pete over there on social media at Sox Type Thing. He's on Twitter. I repost stuff on Major League A-Holes, whether it's on the website at majorleagueaholes.com or soxtypething.com. Also on Instagram at Major League A-Holes. You can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So I think with that, we can declare
this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.